Hello everyone, blank slate in front of me. This is a little different setup. We are going to be doing a mid-month reading update. I've wanted to do reading update videos for the longest time. I wanted to try and do weekly vlogs. I don't think that's going to suit me, so I decided that I would try and do a mid-month and an end-of-month reading update for you all, so you can learn a little bit more about the books that I'm reading. So over the month of March, I have so far, on the 17th of March, read a total of 6 books. I am almost done with the 7th book that I started last night, so that'll definitely be finished today. And yes, I have a few thoughts about the books that I've read. Now, I'm going to put a little tiny disclaimer that this one will be probably a little bit more negative. I haven't had the best month of reading so far. I'm hopeful that the second half of the month, when I do the next video update, will be better. Out of all the books that I've read this month, I've only got 1 5-star, which is great, 2 4-stars, which is great again, and then we've got a 3.5, a 2-star, and a 3-star book. And the book that I'm reading at the moment will also be a 2-star because I'm not enjoying it. But let's get into what I've read. So the first book that I finished was The Foxglove King by 𝓦𝓱𝓮𝓻. It is the first book in the 𝓦𝓱𝓮𝓻 series by this author. This is my first time reading this author, and I didn't really gel with her writing style. I am going to complete the series, or at least read book 2, because I'm now invested. I really want to know what happens, which is so frustrating when the first half of the book wasn't enjoyable for me. So this follows Law, and she is a necromancer of some sort. She lives in a kingdom or a city where magic is sort of, the magic that she can wield is highly illegal, and she has hidden it for quite some time. It's called mortem. It is a magic born from death. And so it's very interesting magic. I would have liked the magic system to be a little bit more at the forefront of this book. It is heavy in church/religious content, because in this world, the church is almost as powerful, if not more, than the royal family. The king wouldn't agree with that, but the church certainly do. And it is led by his brother, the king's brother, and they have the ability to publicly use mortem because they are warrior monks. But Law is not a monk, and she is from a very different background. So she ends up getting caught using her magic and thrust into betrayals, court politics, and all that type of stuff. She's surrounded by 2 main male characters. Yes, there is a slight love triangle in this book, but I didn't actually feel like the romance was much in this book at all. It's a subplot, and I liked that it stayed that way. So one character is called Bastian. He is the king's son, and that is who she is to tail and spy upon to see if he is a traitor of the kingdom. And the other is one of the warrior monks who actually grew up in the court with Bastian. They were once good friends, and he is the son of a duke that betrayed the kingdom, so he has been outcasted, and he was working his way to forgiveness under the church's thumb. It's a really interesting book. I struggled with the first 40% of it because it was very heavy in the religious content, and I have nothing against that, but as a historian who has also spent a lot of my degree looking at his history and how it played out with religion involved, with wars and stuff like that, I don't really normally pick up books with that context, but I did this one. And I'm happy I did, because in the end I did enjoy what happened. The last quarter of it would have been 5 stars easy, but there were quite a few issues that I had with it. Aside from the heavy religious content, the writing style and the language used, this is a world that feels very much so like, to me, a periodic Versailles, so very church based, but also set maybe 1800s, a little bit earlier perhaps. Yeah, the clothing, the food, the revelry, it all feels very old, and then you have very modern language happening from what seems to be a Western writer, so she doesn't feel like she's from Europe at all. I think she's an American writer, which shouldn't really impact if this is how she wanted to set up the world. and I do feel like she wanted to try and make her own world, but it does feel heavily influenced by 𝓦𝓱𝓮 to me, and I couldn't separate it enough. I couldn't take it for what it was. And I find that fantasy that add in some sort of historical context or place, I really struggle to like keep them apart. It's really frustrating for me. So that was a personal issue, maybe not be an issue for other people, but the modern language used and I was imagining something completely different really threw me. I did really like 𝓦𝓱𝓮. He was my favorite character. I liked that he and 𝓬𝓲 were like these morally great people set in this world that had a lot of darkness around it, but also a lot of righteousness. That they were they were like on the wrong path and the others were on the right path. And yeah, Gabriel, who's the other character, the monk's son, he felt very like placed in there to be the little temptation and keep them on the right path, but it leads to a lot of betrayal and hurt. So yeah, I am definitely going to pick up book 2. I gave this 3.5 stars. So there's been a little bit of a lighting change. I had to head out suddenly, so I had to stop the video, but we'll continue on. So the second book that I completed was Song of Silver, Flame Like Night by 𝓦𝓱𝓮𝓻. I hope I'm saying her name right. This was the 𝓦𝓱𝓮𝓮 book club read for March, and it is a Chinese mythology slash historical fantasy. And full disclaimer, I gave it 2 stars only because I finished it. I did not enjoy this book. It's got a beautiful cover on it. I absolutely love the cover. It's so stunning, with the silver foil and on the side as well, and wonderful detailing on the cover. But unfortunately the insides weren't so great. I think the biggest issue I had with it was that the author almost acted as if the reader had to be handled with like kid gloves the entire time. So she would say like there would be a sentence that would be said, and to explain what that meant it would take a paragraph, and I don't feel like the over explanation was needed. It very much so buried the storyline. I did not enjoy the story at all. It follows Lan, who is a song girl in a tea house in a colonized kingdom. So I think it's basically like around the colonization of when the Europeans colonized Hong Kong. That's the kind of feel that I got from it. So there's the 𝓲 that are the indigenous people of the kingdom, and then there are the Atlanteans who have very strange names, and feel very westernized. So that's how it felt to me, that it was a bit on that way with the historical side, and you can see that with the way that some of the situations were set up with the colonization and the brewing tensions and stuff like that, and just like the sheer brutality and like the takeover of the 𝓲. And so in this world there is a magic and it's held by the practitioners. It's supposed to be a dead magic now, but it's obviously been hidden, and there are 4 demon gods, which you can see on the cover. And to be honest, we don't really get enough information about that, which is funny considering how much information you do get. It would have been interesting to learn more about the demon gods than everything else, but the story tried to do too much. I was really offended by some of the storyline. I think it was really quite horrific, some of the things that were put in a YA fantasy, such as there's no trigger warning to the fact that Lan almost gets raped by an Atlantean. So that made me feel really uncomfortable. The girls in the storyline, so there is Lan, who is the girl, or female, I should say, female main character. Her reactions to the other females in this story is really not cool. They like call each other names, like really horrible names, and then also really immature names like pighead and stuff like that. Maybe that's like a translation difference, but in English it just sounded like she was 5-year-old, not whatever age she is. I think she's at 18 or so. And yeah, there was even racial slurs, there was just really a lot of stuff that I didn't sit well with at all as an adult, and perhaps a child or a teenager might not pick up on those things. Maybe it's a bit more critical coming from an adult perspective, but like, I would not want my teenager who's almost 17 reading this. The storyline is really buried underneath the over explanation, which is a shame because there were some elements that I did like, but they were so far and few between. The romance was just really suddenly injected in there out of nowhere. Yeah, I just don't want to go on about it too much because it will make this video incredibly negative, but I do not recommend this book except for its cover. The cover is beautiful, the inside not so great. I won't be reading anything by this author again. I don't think I'd want to take that risk, and that sounds quite final, but after sitting through this, the only reason I finished it was because it was a book club read, otherwise I would have DNF'd. So 2 stars. So the next 2 books I can talk about with this one here. The other book I did was the novellas Stars Above, which is set in the Lunar Chronicles world. So this is book 4 in the series. It's one of the 4 main books, and then there's a novella series which is called Stars Above, which I also read, and Theorist, which is in between this book and the last book, which I read last month. And there are also 2 graphic novels which I have yet to read. I got them out from the library. They're sitting on my shelf right now, so they will be hopefully a read that I have this month that I can talk about in the next video. But for now, I've only read Winter and Stars Above. Winter was fantastic. I gave it 5 stars. It's a great conclusion to the world. It is a big book. It's over 800 pages long, but I feel like most of it is really necessary. I couldn't really say what I would remove to make it a shorter book. I found some of the issues that I had with Cress, so I gave Cress 4.5 stars, and there was one little issue. I shouldn't say issues, it was just one. I just felt like there were too many point of views, and it was too, like, so many things were going on and I couldn't keep up, but that actually led into me being okay with it in Winter. There were a lot of point of views in Winter, a lot of storylines to wrap up, to take to their heights and then, you know, conclude well. And I found that really enjoyable in this book. I was really happy with all the point of views that we got. There was a couple of times where I was really horrified by what happened. Wolf is one character that I feel like never caught a break in this series, and boy did he get like the worst thing to happen in this. I really want to be careful about spoilers with this because this is book 4, so I can't really talk about it much, but this is the retelling of Snow White. That's why it's called Winter. It's got an apple on the front. So Winter is the main villain's stepdaughter, and she's obviously quite beautiful, so she is Snow White in this setting. And then you have 𝓕𝓲𝓷𝓭, who is the villain. She is the evil queen? I can never remember what her name is. And so she wants to remove Winter because she's too beautiful and she's taking the love of her people away from her. I think Marissa Mayer does such a fantastic job with villains, and 𝓕𝓲𝓷𝓭 was amazingly well done. She just, yeah, I really enjoyed her as a villain. Can you hear the rain? It's really getting bad out there. Anyway, I really liked how the team that has been built up in the series take on that tyranny and remove it from Luna. So I won't really say too much about this book because I don't want to give spoilers, and I'm probably likely to if I keep talking about it, but I really enjoyed it. I still really enjoyed a lot of the characters. I had sort of like a ranking between all the books of which characters I liked most, and Winter and Jason were actually my favorites. I started to like them when I read the novella The Princess and the Guard from Stars Above, so when I got to read this one I was ready for it because I really liked her little novella in that. So Winter is, yeah, I keep saying really. I enjoyed her. She was great, and Jason was great. Thorn is also really good. And I liked how everyone sort of had their own needs to be met before the story finished, and they were wrapped up well. Stars Above is very much so a fan service. If you loved the series, then it just gives little tidbits to the world. It gives some really good insight in like 3 of the novellas, and for that reason alone I gave it 4 stars. Did I say I gave this 5? I gave it 5. So I gave it 4 stars because I really enjoyed those 3 novellas, and I think that they really help cement some of the happenings in this world. I don't feel like some of them even needed to be in there, to be honest, but they didn't really give anything extra to the world, like the little android. There was no point to that one. It was just a cute story, I suppose. But overall, very much so a fan service book. I read it as a digital copy, that's why I can't show you the book. So yeah, 4 and 5 stars for those books. And the last book I have finished is another Marissa Meyer book, and what a contrasting conversation we're about to have. So this is book 2 in the Gilded series, and it's the final book in that world. It is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling. It is lush with Germanic folklore, or at least Gilded was, and just this wonderful world that I was so in love with. I read Gilded in 2021. I gave it 5 stars, absolutely loved it. One of my favourite Rumpelstiltskin retellings, if not my favourite actually. And I was so excited for this book. If you followed me for a while, I keep putting it on my TBR because I wanted to have it when it came out. There was a delay in getting it here. Long story short, took forever to get to this point, but I finally read it, and what a letdown. Okay, the good things about this book. I really love the Earl King. He is a fantastic villain. Like I said, Marissa Meyer knows what she's doing with villains. Unfortunately, she does sabotage his character towards the end, which really frustrated me because I really liked him. He was cunning, manipulative, but also I really enjoyed the way he interacted with 𝓕𝓷. So 𝓕𝓷 is the main character. In the end of Gilded, she was cursed to the castle, untethered from her body, and she made a deal with the Earl King, with her unborn child, that she would sacrifice and go along with his plans, become his queen in order to protect some children, won't say why, and also Gild, who is the main male character of the series. I don't know where she went wrong exactly with this one. I found 𝓕𝓷 incredibly boring, incredibly repetitive. She just drove me insane in this book, and I loved her in the first book. I thought she was fantastic. I loved the fact that her stories could be lies but also could come real, and I just loved every little moment and detail of that book. This one I could not say the same. There's a lot of time jumping, there's a lot of expectations of the reader to just sort of go along with what's going on in the book. Everything felt erratic, even though it was really boring for the first half. Everything felt silly or like out of place, unless it was with the Earl King. I felt like he was the only sane character. Like he was the one that sounded fair to me. Like his reactions felt right. 𝓕𝓷 was so petty and immature. Gild was incredibly immature at times, and like I said, the repetitive nature of it all just really got to me. The second half is like a whirlwind fever dream. I feel like the way she wrapped up this world was just too dramatic, and at the sabotaging of other characters, I'm not going to go into it any further than that. I didn't enjoy it. I really wished I had. There were so many opportunities for this, and there were so many parts that she touched on but could have delved into deeper to really enrich in this final part of the story. Unfortunately, it fell flat. So I gave it 3 stars, even though I've got a lot of critical thoughts of it, simply because I still like the world, and like the darkness of it. It's so cool, and I love the Earl King. Could read an entire book about him. Like if she did a spin-off like she did with Fairest for Levana, totally would pick it up. But yeah, I don't know why this one ended up not being the 5-star that I predicted it to be. Never mind. We all have books like that, don't we? So that is the end of what I have finished. I'm reading 2 books at the moment. This one I start today is Vespertine, and I feel a little bit anxious about this one just because it's another book that's got heavy religious context, but I think since I love Margaret Rogerson so much that I'm not going to have so much of a problem as I did with the Hannah Witten book. As follows, is it 𝓤𝓕? Yes, and she's training to be a Grey Sister and her convent is attacked. So there is a heavy, well, I wouldn't say heavy, but there is a religious aspect in here. I'm not sure how much. I think this is book 1 in a series. Don't quote me on that though, because I think online it's not saying it's one. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this and seeing where it goes. The second book I've already started. I'm at 60%, I think, and it's called Falling Hard with the Royal Guard, which is by 𝓦𝓱𝓮𝓻𝓮, I think. I'll put the name across the screen if I've got that wrong. And it is a romance set in England, in the Tower of London. It is about a character called Maggie who lives there with her father, who is part of the Royal Guard or something to do with that. I can't remember the term. Is it something beater? Brush beater? There's some really interesting terms. Anyway, so she works at the ticket booth for the Tower of London. Everything is so intimately wrapped up in this world here in this Tower of London. And there is a guard called Freddie. To be honest, I find it incredibly unlikable. So Maggie is just someone who is very relate to her job but doesn't seem to think that she should be responsible and not drink alcohol until late into the night, that kind of thing. I think the writer is trying to make it seem like it's an endearing thing. Perhaps this is a cultural thing that I'm not getting because I don't drink, and also I don't get drinking culture. So maybe that's why it's lost on me, but I don't understand why she can't be early to work or on time to work every day. Like, that's a responsibility, and she's really against her boss and very snarky towards him at times, I think, but he equally is horrible to her. The people around her are really horrible. It's not a nice book. I'm not enjoying it, so I'm probably going to give it 2 stars, but I will give you my proper thoughts on it in the next video that we do. So those are the 2 books that I'm reading currently, and I do have just 1 book on my prompts list that I need to make sure I get to, because this book here is sort of the elective. The rest are all buddy reads, so I know that I'll read them because they're scheduled into the month, but this one I've just got to pick up at some point. This is Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is book 3 of the Brown sisters. I won't go into it because I don't know when I'm going to read it. If I don't pass doing my prompts this month, it's because of this book, because every other book I'll read. So yeah, I think I'll end it here. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and listening to me talk about my reading updates. Do you like these types of videos? I really enjoyed sharing what I've been doing and my thoughts with you all. It's been a really tough month for me because I've had so much personal stuff going on. I won't go into that, but it's been really challenging for me to sit down and read. So to only have 6 finished books on the 17th of March feels very foreign, but I'm really grateful that I've got even 6, because that's how tough it's been. I hopefully will be back with a new video very soon. I'm very much so aware that I need to set up for the month of April in my reading journal, so if that video isn't next, I have a filmed I've already recorded it, of a plan with me, fill in my journal with me kind of moment, and then also I have my quarterly flip through to do as well. So it'll be one of those videos coming soon. Thank you again for spending some time with me today. I hope you're all well where you are, and I will see you for a new video very soon. Bye everyone.